Hi, this is English with a Twist. I am Israel and today we will be speaking about some tips for effective learning. Of course, you can use them to improve the way you learn English. So the first tip that I want to share with all of you is that of spaced repetition. One way to put an example about what is spaced repetition, we can think about drinking water. For example, what do you intuitively think that is more effective for our body? If we had, let's say, an amount equivalent to 4 glasses this size, how do you think your body naturally will absorb it better? If you simply take all those glasses all at once in the morning and then you don't take any water for the next 2 days? Well, that's kind of self-explanatory. That's kind of obvious. I think most of us would just give it some time and take bits or drinking throughout the day. And that's exactly the same way that it's better for our brain to memorize and learn new words. But that doesn't mean that when it comes to learning, people think of it as obvious. For one reason or another, there is something called cramming, where people take information like that water and they just start to consume it all at once, thinking or hoping that the brain will absorb it. But that is far from the truth. Here I have a book with me called Limitless by Jim Kwik, which, by the way, I am loving. And it goes into the science and the why and even very specific examples of how you can avoid cramming, why cramming is not good for the brain. But spaced repetition, on the other hand, is like that way of drinking water, where you drink throughout the day and your body is able to absorb it, but when it comes to information. So with spaced repetition, what you do is like you study something and then you give it some time. Perhaps you review the information at the end of the day. You just go through it again. And that is much more effective. Just like when you give it some time between meals and then you eat every day meals at a certain time throughout the day, and then your body is able to absorb those nutrients. In the same way happens with learning. You review the information, you learn the information, but then you give it some time. You perhaps review it 2 or 3 times in the day, then with appropriate breaks, and then the next day you review the information. For example, I'm going to have a study session and I will set my timer for 25 minutes and I will start my reading. The study session is done. And that is how spaced repetition works, and it's highly effective. It works in the way your brain naturally works. Alright, the next step is taking notes. Now, I'm sure you are not new to taking notes. You've heard about it, you've done it yourself. But there is something to note. There is something to making notes in a way that is more effective than others. So, one thing that you don't want to do is write everything. When you're hearing a presentation, when you're hearing a lesson, you want to write things that are more convenient to you. For instance, if you're a doctor and the language lessons explain body parts, you want to make sure you get those body parts because you're a doctor. But if you're an engineer and they speak about technology and they go into your field, you want to make sure that you take not only every note that has to do with the subject that you want to be familiar of, but you want to make sure that you take note of the words that you need to learn. And that's gonna do something for your brain. That's gonna process immediately when you're hearing with intention, when you are hearing in a way that you are filtering what's not relevant to you and you're writing down. This lets your brain get priority to the new information. And that is effective note taking. One tip that I mentioned was note taking. So as you can see here, I have wrote some notes. Now, what about the study time? When you are going to study your notes, because you have already filtered and pre-selected information that is most relevant to you. At the time of study, instead of seeing a bunch of words of different things, you are getting the core, the new information that you needed to grow, to further develop your vocabulary. And that is something to take into account when it comes to taking notes. And another tip is using a pen and paper. That is something that is explained further in the book. There has been some studies how some students typing with a computer or a laptop versus those who were note-taking, they had much better memory and efficiency on their studies. So if you're able to take a notepad, or if you're using your iPad, make sure you use an electronic pen. And there's many apps today that can convert your note-taking, your note writing from your electronic pen into text so that you can further organize it, copy and paste. But you get the best of the two worlds. You get to work with your brain in note making, and then you also can organize better and manage the information that you saved by handwriting. And the last tip that I want to share with you guys is about review. Now, review is very important, but this is not the same as spaced repetition where you study something and then you study it again throughout the day. This is more about reviewing it on time. Review it in the same time that you are studying. So instead of focusing on 5 different subjects or 5 different phrases and then doing 5 new ones, it would be better if you take your time and before you're ending your study session, you pause and you try to teach that. Imagine that you are teaching somebody else what you just learned. That is the way you'll review. I just studied for 25 minutes and I learned some new things. Now, instead of moving forward to another chapter or another subject, I'm going to review. This will allow my brain to retain the information in a longer term. Imagine that you are given a presentation. Before finishing, you review the information, try to recall that information and see how much of it you remember accurately. And so that kind of review is the review that can help you to learn more efficiently. It's not about the amount that you can consume, is how much you can retain. So if you do this in your learning and even other things in life, because this is not a book for just learning languages, it's about how your brain works and how can you be more efficient. That can certainly be applied into learning English. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. This was English with a Twist.